Welcome to The Complete Musician, creativity at its core, exploring innovative musical ideas, thoughts, and techniques for the modern musician in today's society, with your hosts, James Nagus and Drew Phillips.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Complete Musician Podcast. I'm James.
And I'm Drew.
And we're back with another exciting episode, a new topic, a new series of questions that we'll answer, perhaps.
At least questions that we're going to ask each other about the topic, maybe, since we've only come up with the word and haven't planned any part of this.
Yes, and the word is recipe. That's right. We're going to be talking about our favorite cooking topics, cooking recipes, crock-pot meals, one-stop Instant Pot recipes. That's what we agreed on, right?
Yeah, Instant Pot is the jam, and we're going to list 35 reasons why you should only cook in your Instant Pot and never use your oven again.
Right, because no one has time for a roast. Let's be real.
Oh, wait, that's not actually the word.
What is it?
But it does start with the same three letters, and it is recording.
Oh, okay.
Now, we've talked about recording before, but we talked about recording in the context of getting better at your instrument, like recording your own practice sessions for reflection afterwards. But this is a different type of recording that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk more about recording yourself professionally to try and get the best the best take of yourself on music that you can. And the recording that we do a lot of specifically is recording demos of our own music or music that we just want to record that sounds good.
Recording yourself practice is often the thing that we dread. I know I never enjoy listening to myself in a practice situation because in that case we're kind of looking for the mistakes, right? That's the whole point. But recording arrangements or recording fun stuff, like, it's fun. And that's the whole idea. And it can be challenging and frustrating, but the end goal is that at least I do it because it's fun to do.
Yeah, it produces a really cool end product, especially when you're having a good time doing it. But you're right, it's not without its frustrations and it's not without its difficulty, certainly, especially when you're trying to showcase the best part of your playing. So it's something that we need to practice. And yeah, I don't even like listening to myself talk. So listening to myself play
I don't like listening
also,
to you talk either.
That's natural. I knew this was one-sided. And I don't like listening to that. So listening to myself play is sometimes even worse. But at least I can make a tone that's way more pleasing than my voice on the horn, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, if you want to check out some basics on recording, I think you can check out our other episode. I don't remember which one. I think we stopped kind of labeling numbers of episodes, but we talked about some basics there in terms of equipment and stuff, I think. And if we didn't, just let us know.
We didn't, but that's okay. We did. Did
we really not talk even about like basic microphones?
Oh no, wait! I thought you were talking about numbering the episodes.
Oh, that
we still number the episodes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, that's fine.
Okay, go back to your. What did you say? Because I wasn't listening.
Let's just jump right into talking about. Let's not worry about equipment necessarily.
No,
because that's what I was thinking.
I have an idea.
You're gonna jump right in, okay?
Yeah, I have an idea. Okay, here, the idea.
I have an idea too. What if we coat sleds in metal and then people can slide on them and off them at the same time? Is that not the idea that you had?
That's a great idea.
Oh,
boy,
okay.
You should go on Shark Tank with that one immediately. No, but my idea. Okay, so recording is difficult and all that kind of stuff, but I want to see what you would say. I know that with recording, there's a big issue that always seems to prevent my recordings when I do them from making them like perfect, or it's always the main concern that I have with recording. I can think of one word that describes it, like one playing thing or one like musical term that is the most difficult thing I think about recording. And I want to see what you think.
It depends on how many voices. I would say the two big
Wait,
ones are coordination.
don't say it.
Oh, I'm just
The
thinking
idea is no. Okay, the idea of this was I can't wait to edit this and hear that long scream I just did. The thing I want to like say 1, 2, 3, and then say if we say the same thing.
Okay. All right. One word.
I did not
I
explain.
only have one chance.
Yes, I only have one.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, and then we'll say the word, and let's see if it's the same.
Okay.
Okay. You got your musical thing.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. And 1, 2, 3.
Coordination.
Intonation. Well, we got
You said intonation?
You said coordination.
Yeah, intonation was my other thing.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, I got close. You're right. It totally depends on what or how many voices you're recording. Coordination is definitely a part of it. So why don't we delve into both of those for just a second and talk about what we do to help when we're recording that way. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first, and I mean,
Okay.
if I can talk about coordination if you want to talk about intonation.
That sounds good.
So some of the demos that I do are for large horn ensemble pieces, like we talked about actually last podcast. We talked about doing arranging, and so I've done up to 12 or 16 part pieces, and the biggest issue there beyond intonation for me is, quite frankly, just lining up all the parts. And the easy solution there is either having a metronome click track in your headphones in your ear as you're playing, which relies on the piece having a steady tempo. Or if you have some kind of reference track to play with, if you have a MIDI program, you export a MIDI, or if you have a recording of the piece already and you're just doing a version of it, then you can play along with that recording. Just having something in your ear to line up the parts. And whether if you want to turn that off after one track and play with your first track or keep it on the whole time, either one of those or both in combination is definitely the easiest way to help your coordination. And just stopping and checking every once in a while, I think, is good to make sure that you're in the right track. And then the nice thing with technology is that when you're done, you can always scooch things back and forth. If you didn't quite line up an entrance perfectly, we can manipulate that, which is completely unrealistic, for live performance. But
let's totally get into editing in just a minute. But
yeah, sure.
But with coordination, so question, when do you find that you single track, and when do you find that you use other voices playing in your ear as you're recording? When do you have any specific moments that you do one or the other?
Well, I try to keep all the parts that I am recording in my ear as I record them, so I can play, at least try to play in tune with myself.
Yeah, I'm not going to take over your spot. Do you find that it's easier to play, like, do you find it's easier to coordinate music that moves like quickly or slowly?
Well, I would say definitely quickly, because especially if you have consecutive eighth notes or 16th things that are in kind of a homorhythmic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. If they move together at the same time,
that's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. Now, if you're doing something like you're recording a horn and piano piece, like you're blasting through the old Mason Jones book, then you can quite frankly lay down the piano part and play over that, and that's not too bad because they're two different voices entirely. That's a lot easier. Or if you're doing an unaccompanied piece, then forget about it because you're just playing by yourself.
Right.
So as long as you line your playing up with the AC unit that keeps, turning on and off, then you'll be fine.
I totally agree with you. Fast music, you're right. When you're playing, and if you're just doing with a metronome, or even if you're doing with some other voices in your ear, I always find it astounding to listen back to a track and line them up, and you realize that determined by, unfortunately, sometimes by range, or determined by dynamic level, or just like how notes are speaking, some just don't speak the same. Or you
Right.
did things just a little differently enough to be irritatingly noticeable. Like in fast music.
Yeah, and it illuminates the importance of communication in chamber music. Like this is chamber music without anyone else or a conductor, which is impossible. If no one's breathing together, moving together, you're not making eye contact with anyone unless you have a mirror and you're staring into your own eyes.
And your
which
soul.
is weird. But anyway, it's when you then go and make music with other people, you're like, "Oh, that's right. This is how it's done."
This is so much easier.
Yeah.
You're right. With slower music, you have a little bit of wiggle room, especially if it's like more longer durations of notes, because you can not fudge entrances, but it's just easier to get that coordination down with longer durations, I think.
And to an extent, a little bit of wiggle room is that good old wabi-sabi, right? The beauty of imperfection. It's the humanistic side of music performance, that if something is too perfect, then it sounds like a computer. It's the little tiny mistakes that make it realistic.
You said that. I heard wasabi, and
Sushi,
I
yes.
was like, this totally relates. I
Uh-huh.
I completely identify with this.
The little ball
The
of green spiciness.
Of really spicy snot stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, you're right. Coordination is difficult, and you're right. And now that I'm thinking about it, it does remind me how much more fun it is to play with other people, and how much easier it is to play with other people, especially if you don't mind my tangent. Especially when it comes to playing in tune, with not either voices going in your head or when you have headphones clamped over your ears. That is. Do you mind if I tangent? Like go on to my thing now?
Go for it. Absolutely.
That's what I find the most difficult part is playing in tune. I've worked with a tuner, and I certainly know where all my slide positions are that need to be there, and mostly what I need to do with all of my pitches and ranges, blah. But when I put headphones on, or put a metronome in my ear, or put other MIDI voices going on in my head, it is just never the same as playing with anyone else. And there are weird pitch things that happen, and I mean, it's almost unexplainable, because I know you and I, when we do demos together, like when one of us does piano and the other is playing horn, I never have those intonation issues ever. Like because we have, like we were saying, it's easier to play with a live person, but you would think that, pianos are, they have their set intonation, but you would figure a MIDI piano is like in tune, and you're like, well, I can hear my sound, I should be able to tune with this. And then you listen back and you're like, nope. Nope. Why was this C 30 cents sharp? I have no idea. I thought I was fine. And so that's my main thing, is playing in tune with myself. I think I've tried a lot of different ways. I've tried the headphones where the earbuds are right in my ears. I've tried that, and that is ultimately, especially when playing with other voices, exceedingly unsuccessful.
Right. Yeah, and I think
that is really unsuccessful.
What is the fancy word for that is like in-ear monitors.
Yeah, that
versus
does not
over
work.
the ear, open and closed headphones, and
yes,
because you've used those too, right?
Yeah, and that's what I usually use now. And for a while, I used those exclusively, and I was still having some intonation issues. And so now I do the over-the-ear headphones, but I, only have the ones that have two ones for each ear. So I take one of them off, and because I want to hear what my sound is, I take the right one off.
Right.
So I just play with half of it on, and I have to, if I'm doing a metronome, then I have to turn the metronome down so far that only I can hear it and the microphone won't pick it up that's listening to me. And if I'm playing with voices, I have to turn the voices down so far that the microphone won't pick it up, but also so that I can hear, which is really hard to do when you're playing and you can hear yourself bouncing off with just your right ear. It's a really complicated situation.
Right. And thinking about it, I've never participated in a LA film score session, but I think a lot of the monitors they use are exactly what you kind of discovered through your scientific process, is that it's a left ear with the right ear open, so you can still have the same sensation that we're used to in terms of experiencing pitch through both our body and our ears.
Right.
Have you encountered any of that kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Wasabi?
You said the bleed. Well, I was going to say the bleed of the metronome or your other playing or sound that gets picked up from the microphone.
Oh man, the piece I referenced in our last podcast, the Wind Waker fantasy I did. If you listen really, really, really hard in the middle of the piece during, I think it's the Windfall Island theme or Zelda's Lullaby theme or something, I had a metronome going. That one I single tracked, and the metronome was going with eighth notes the whole time because I did some things with tempo with some retardandos and stuff, but it was so loud that it got picked up on the mic. So it's pretty tough to hear, but if you're listening for it, then I think you clue right into it. At least I hear it now when I listen. No one else who's heard it has said they can, but I can hear it.
So what would you suggest to someone who needs to record with a metronome, or what would be an alternative that might reduce bleed?
Okay.
Or is bleed always a bad thing?
That's a hard question. I think if someone needs to record with a metronome, honestly, okay, at that point, I would use in-ear monitor.
Mm-hmm.
I would, and I find that to be helpful because I can turn that down pretty far. I've also played a concert with one of those digital holograms things. I played with Marie. Yeah, I played a Maria Callas concert some time ago, since we're not time stamping this, in a previous engagement, and that we had an in-ear monitor, but it was more like a pulse. And so when I set my metronome, if I set it more to a pulse setting, it's way easier. And I find that in-ear monitor really helps instead of a click. That's really helpful. But eliminating bleed, dude, I'm still like experimenting. It's really tough. What are your suggestions for it? I haven't found any way that I'm really happy with yet.
Yeah, with metronome, I guess the two options are, like you mentioned, finding a tone that is a little less high, heavy, something a little lower, and then reducing that volume. Or, I mean, I guess suppose you could try a metronome that flashes at you instead of having an actual sound.
I would end up ignoring it. I would just
But that
ignore
would be
it.
really tricky. Yeah. In terms of other sound bleed, I think in certain situations it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're doing horn and piano, you can have some weird delays, like hearing the piano. If you're doing just horn stuff, like say you're recording a horn quartet, you really don't notice the bleed.
Oh, that's true.
Because the rest of the sound is so loud.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So in that case, that would just be a little experimentation. So when you're setting up your mics and everything, just try a little bit and see what you get. I mean, even when we record these podcasts, sometimes I know if I have your volume turned up too loud in my headphones, we can hear your voice coming through my headphones into my microphone. So we still experience all that kind of stuff.
Down and down and down right now. Actually, that really helps when we're editing because it helps me line it up.
Oh, well, there is that too. But there's a little bit of delay.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah. So that's when I go in and edit in silence. Mm-hmm. So we can't hear. But you're right, when one of us is talking and the other ones, you can't hear it.
Right.
Like you can't hear it.
So let me ask you a question on intonation.
Oh, okay.
So when you are able to be successful in playing in tune with yourself, do you find that you are really focusing in on intonation with a tuner more, or are you focusing on that less and just playing essentially?
The two most key things I've found to playing in tune is, just like you said, not focusing on it at all. Not focusing on playing in tune and playing where the pitch is the most resonant. That's been the most helpful. And imagining if I was singing it. If I was singing it, then I place the pitch normally right, instead of thinking, oh boy, this is, C, I'm going to have to cover here, or oh no, this note is sharp. I'm going to have to bring it down, whatever. That usually spells disaster for not only that pitch but all the pitches around it. So if I think so inherently about it, then I will ultimately screw it up. So if I imagine that I'm singing the pitch and just playing with my best tone, that usually produces much better results. And then the other thing is playing in a nice space. Yes. Unfortunately, when we record some of our demos, at least ones that we just want to hear what the piece sounds like. Like, I just did a few that we'll talk about in a minute, I guess. But I just did a few that I just did right here in my little basement area. Not a great space, not the worst, but it's not a concert hall, or it's not like a small recital hall that has just a little bit of reverb to it, like natural reverb. So at times it gets like some raw sound that I really don't like, and it doesn't just have, it's really hard to play in an enclosed space. We all know that. And because of that, we can hear every little darn thing that we do. I hear every single attack and it's like I'm playing against a wall, because I'm literally playing against a wall. So it just makes everything really introspective. And at that point, I think we've discussed how recording in a smaller space is always, it's just makes us question everything, because you hear every little thing you do, as opposed to getting in a really nice space where, not that things are masked, but it's more of what an audience would hear, which is what's coming out in front of you as opposed to what's coming out behind you.
Right. The sound doesn't have a chance to develop.
Right. And
in a smaller space.
Right. And so that has certainly done things to intonation, because if I don't even like really the tone, or I'm not enjoying too much the tone in my small area, it ultimately can translate into something that I'm not enjoying when I record it. Although, again, in one of the most successful recordings I did was my fun arrangement of Out There from Hunchback. And I did that in one of our recital halls at school, and I remember having almost zero intonation issues with that, because I was playing in a really nice space. So really
I feel like we compromise when we're in small spaces. I've done almost all of my recent demos in my small little office, which is very dry. I even have some bass trap panels and acoustic panels to make it even more dry. Right. And one thing that I've found that I personally will do in a small dry space is I will play too soft. And not only does that affect my attacks, so I will fluff or air muffin way too many notes because I'm thinking I have to be so delicate. Yep. But I find it makes my intonation go weird.
Agreed.
So one thing that I tend to do when I record in this space is I will play louder, like one or two dynamics louder or fuller than maybe is printed, and knowing that I can always go back and literally dial it down if I need it to be softer.
And speaking of that, editing.
Yes.
We certainly, especially if it's like a demo of something, or if we're layering. I mean, if you're recording a horn octet, you have to record all of those parts separately. So certainly it's not like a live thing. I mean, that's common sense. But
yeah, you're not fooling anyone.
Right. Oh no, I suddenly split my soul into 8 parts and create, 8 Horcruxes.
Then again,
and they all play the horn. That's
Steve
not...
Park did that, and you get YouTubers who like record themselves playing videos of them, like 8 and 12 and 16 of them playing. Granted, they're not actually playing that video.
Right. So what witchcraft are they using that we need to get a handle on?
Oh, well, they're just lip syncing.
Oh. Well,
all of them, all the people who do YouTube multi-tracks are lip syncing. They record the parts in perfection and then they lip sync over top / play sync over top. I guarantee it.
You are calling out all the fake natties right now. Yeah, you guys are.
I would do the same thing. It ensures you have a really good performance.
The only that's true. Okay, I do not record myself like my face because first of all,
gosh.
no one wants to see that. Like I really don't want to see that. And I'd much rather put up a pretty picture
Yes.
of something. But anyway,
Same.
but yeah, so like even when we're doing with piano and horn, I'm gonna burst the bubble. Those are spliced together.
Of course.
Like that's not to burst anyone's bubble. That's like I was playing through this one time and I chipped a note like I would in a real performance and I didn't like it. So I went back and did it again because, oh, look, I can do it better. In the hopes of, like we always said, showcasing yourself in your best light possible.
Now, granted, disclaimer alert here. We are not advocating the use of editing when you're trying to be genuine, like in a job audition situation, and they're asking for live recordings. That's different.
The words live recording have a very real meaning that you better be able to back up.
Right.
So if like on my recording I don't say live, nope.
That means there's some editing,
There's
which
some editing.
is, again, editing is not a bad thing.
As long as you're not being immoral about it and trying to
Yeah.
claim you're something you're not.
Exactly. Which,
Then
like
you're-
you said, being able to back it up is actually pretty easy. In terms of if you can't cut it, then when someone hears you play live in person,
And they
it's
scratch
usually
their
not pretty.
head. And it's like, this doesn't match what I thought they did. Okay.
Right. But like you're saying for horn and piano, I know a lot of the times when I record demos of my own pieces, it's right hot off the press. So I am learning them as I am recording them. So you know that I am making a lot of mistakes.
Every piano part ever. Just, I'm like changing things as I'm going along. Like, I'm like, well, this is a perfect finished, thing that I never want to change. And then I start recording and I'm like, I can't do that. Let's
Sometimes
just change this measure right
have
here
you ever
forever.
recorded one hand at a time? Because I certainly have for some things.
I could burst the bubble of several recordings that I have done of one hand at a time because I have said it before and I will say it again. I am not a pianist and I will never pretend to be. And especially when it comes to recording other literature, like not our literature, we can hack through our piano parts that we do. I mean, we can. We're not going to record it if we can't play the piano most of the time.
Right.
But when it's other people's stuff, no. Like, okay, do you want me to burst the bubble on one of them? Do you want me to go ahead and come out and like admit the truth?
Do it.
Okay. Just what you said. Everyone, if you want to, go listen to the Ways I just recorded. The song from the heart. Let me just tell you, that piano part is wicked. And there's a part in there where the right and left hand have these like cascading motions, and the left hand is playing these pedal notes. I don't know what Liszt type person has to have the hands or the accuracy to play and jump with the left hand like it has to hit those pedal motions, but I'll tell you, I can't. So I recorded the left hand by itself.
Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that.
I did. And you know what? It made a pretty sound. And first of all, no one's paying attention to the piano anyway. It was about the horn playing. But yeah, I don't think there's any shame in doing that if you're just promoting your best self and if you're just doing something for pure enjoyment. Who cares?
Right. You don't want to. We've all had sessions where we set up the mics and recorded and it's been frustrating because for whatever reason things don't happen or we're tired or noisy, and that's not a good experience. Like you said, we do a lot of this for fun, and hopefully you record for fun.
Right.
So use the technology that you have. Take advantage of the fact that you can literally splice in a note if you feel like it.
If you have any questions about what kind of editing software we use, no, I have to say most of our editing is mostly just lining up and like splicing in parts. I have to say, like, I think at least you and I think are not of the level, but like we know we can do something Like,
I don't
if
try
there's-
something if I know if I can't do it.
I'm not like.
I'm
let's
not
be
going to
real.
record the concert shtick.
That's
Sorry.
exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I am not about to do first move at a concert stick, and then, oh look, I can't play up to the high E, so I'm just gonna like MIDI in a D E or something, like
pitch
right at the
shift
end
it.
of my C scale. Right, I'm not gonna do that. So most of the editing that we do, at least, is just shifting around to make sure things line up with whatever we do. We're not really, like you said, splicing in notes. That's not it. It's because
Right.
we want it to be or we're doing things that we can do and are accomplishable for my skill level.
Sometimes I have actually done a slight bit of pitch shifting. If, like, say, a major last chord or something, and the third is just ever so slightly high, I can go in there and lower that third so it just locks into place.
I've done that before too. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if certain
yeah.
things, and only if it's
Yeah.
really heinously bad.
Yeah, if it's indicative that I did this and it was my best run through of something that's like 30 some bars long, I didn't miss a note and I got to a chord and it's not like locks 100% in tune, I will leave it. And that's because real people did this, and I am a real person, and I have flaws.
It's okay.
Christina
Wabi-sabi.
Aguilera told me I'm beautiful.
Sushi and wasabi. That's all you need to know.
Okay, I'll remember that. Anyway, yeah, that's I certainly had to do that. But if you have questions on what editing software that we use or how we do it, or you just want to try it yourself, let us know, and we'll communicate with you what we use for, like you were saying earlier, equipment and stuff. We'll tell you what we use to record and what kind of programs and all that kind of stuff.
So 2 more quick editing things, at least in regards to, like, if you want to record a quartet or an octet, or something like that, are the concepts of panning and reverb. And this can really help your final recording. Panning being moving the sound in space, left or right. So instead of having everything centered in the middle, you can just space out the parts as if you were to see them on a concert stage. So just thinking the part distribution 1 through 8 or whatever it is, and then just scooching the parts over a little bit. Most programs have a panning feature, and you can just experiment with that. So that helps put the sound in space. And another way to help put the sound in space is something that we both use, which is reverb, being the kind of the echo, right?
Yeah.
In the simplest way, reverb is, again, it's finding a space for the sound. So especially if you record dry, you can put that into a concert hall. And there are a lot of reverb programs. The most important things to know are the dry and wet sliders of reverb. Dry being the source sound, wet being just the echo that you hear. So you can move those sliders up and down to get the desired echoiness of the sound. And there's impulse response files and all kinds of crazy things you can get into, but those are some basics.
So message us if you want to know more about what we use. Reverb always helps. And I just, every time I record dry, I listen and I'm like, this is gross. And then if I add just a touch of reverb and even a tiny setting, it always suddenly I'm like, oh, there's a tone. There's a tone I'm generally okay with. Always.
Yeah. So in the spirit of reverb, what if we post a couple clips now? Maybe what if we each did one thing that we did in our small spaces but added reverb, and then one that we did in more an actual big acoustic space, just so you all listeners can hear the differeces and the advantages and disadvantages of both of those settings.
Okay, I'll post one that I literally just did about a week and a half ago with a composition I just wrote for one of my senior trumpet players called Euphoric Ride for Trumpet and Piano. Ooh! It's with a MIDI piano, but I did it in my small space because I just wanted to see what it sounded like. Side note, if you're recording demos for yourself and it's not the instrument you play, you have to transpose it. And this piece was written for, B-flat trumpet, and I either had to go up a fourth or down a fifth. Up a fourth was heinously sharp the entire time, and I ultimately trashed all of that and then ended up recording the whole piece down a fifth, which made it a little, I think, more wumphy, I guess, if that's an adjective.
Yeah,
Wumphy?
we'll make
Yeah.
it one.
Yeah, but it made it sound way more in tune and way better, so I'll post just a clip of that right here.
That was beautiful.
Thanks. And then for a better space, or do you want to do yours?
Sure, I'll do my little space. This
Okay.
is the thing that I just finished, which was a Rheinberger motet, the Abendlied. And again, I recorded this in my little home office, and then I used impulse response files for the reverb and made a few adjustments. And it sounds like this.
That moved me
Where'd you go?
to the other side of the room.
Oh,
and back.
wow.
But it was
Okay.
mostly to throw away my Chick-fil-A cup. But,
Oh,
it still
okay.
moved me. And then in my a larger space, I already referenced this, but this is a recording I did in a recital hall at school. I did an arrangement of Out There from Hunchback's, or The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I arranged it for horn and piano that kind of melded the solo part and the Broadway musical part together because it's so much fun to play. And so I did live piano and then did the live horn part all in this space, and it really helped to play in the same space for both recordings. So this is a little bit of what that sounds like.
Nice. And here's something of mine. I don't know what it is. I'll pick it later. It sounds like this.
I would be lying if I didn't say that that touched me in a deep way.
Wow. I'd consider
would be
you don't
lying.
even know what it was.
Right, I would be lying.
That's true.
Anyway, so those are our tips and talks about recording demos, not necessarily for education or anything like that, but just for fun, because you should have fun. And I think we're wrapping up now. So thank you for listening to us blather on. Again, we appreciate you listening and all of your support. We are the Koromoto Horn Duo. We have lots of things coming up and ideas and all sorts of things. Go check out our other videos and podcasts. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, like iTunes or SoundCloud or other places that have, or maybe not that. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, wherever you get your podcast, go find us there.
Yep.
We also have an email that you can contact us if you want to know anything about what we talked about, which is koromotohorn@gmail.com. And we have a website, which is www.koromotohorn.com.
And we also have something that I don't know if we've referenced it a few times, but go check out the Horn Call, where we write articles every Horn Call in the creative hornist and technique tips sections.
You can hear not only our spoken word, but the written word.
and you can imagine you can read that in our voices.
And read our bios at the end, because they change ever so slightly but are great insights into our lives.
It's true. So I think that's going to about do it. Again, thanks for listening. And hey, if you have any topic suggestions, we're up for that too. Just let us know.
Love to hear it. Yeah.
But until next time, have a good one.
See ya.